Hola friends, welcome to the Medicine, Marriage, and Money YouTube channel, the only channel for physicians who want to achieve marital interdependence and financial freedom together. On this channel, you will learn how to show up as the best version of yourself so that you can love intentionally and build a more financially savvy relationship with your spouse. And I am your host, a physician mom, a doctor's wife, a Gottman leader, a certified life and marriage coach, Dr. Kate Mangona. Welcome. Bienvenidos.
What can I do to be better? And I think ultimately that's what it is, deciding to first be better yourself, and then you're going to have a better marriage. And I think just also making it if you decide that you want to be married and you want to stay married, it's really a choice to make it work. And you just have to keep showing up to making it work and making it a non-negotiable that you will figure out a way to make it work.
Please help me welcome to today's episode of Medicine, Marriage, and Money, Dr. Archana Shrestha. Dr. Archana Shrestha is an emergency medicine physician, a certified life coach, a best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur. She is the founder and chief wellness officer at Mighty Mom MD and co-founder of Women in White Coats. Archana's mission and purpose is to uplift and empower working moms, in particular women doctors. And she has been madly in love for 15 years, maybe even longer. She's going to talk about that. And she has 2 kids and a mini poodle just like me. So welcome, Dr. Archana. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks so much, Kate. It's so exciting to be here.
Okay. So first of all, I just want to dive back 15 years, or maybe it was even longer. Tell me, when did you meet your husband? Where were you in life? What did that look like? Why did you fall in love?
Yeah, so I was in residency in Washington, D.C., doing my emergency medicine residency. And I think we met when I was about 26. And I was just kind of ready to meet the person that I would marry, and I was trying to meet the right person. Of course, you date and you're like, well, no, that's not the right fit for me. And I was just really ready and open to be meeting him. And it was kind of where in the world is this person? My perfect, not even about perfect, but just that person who I knew would be my soulmate, and that I would go on to just create an amazing life with. And I was just very open and ready for that, and sort of wondering where and how we would meet. And so it just so happened that a friend came to town to visit me in Washington, D.C., and we went to Georgetown to this place called Me and You, and it's a wine bar that's now closed down. But we were just out having drinks, just having a good time. And she said to me, and this was kind of unusual for her. She wasn't someone to tell me to do things or dare me, but she was like, hey, I think you should go talk to that guy. And I was like, okay, I'll go do it. And so I had a couple drinks. So I was like, okay, feeling kind of bold and courageous. And so I just went up to him. And this is the person who ends up being my husband, but went up to him and said hello, and, just struck up a conversation. And he was out with his friends. And what was really interesting was that he had literally moved to Washington, D.C. the day before. And his friends had kind of made him come out, and he was kind of just tired because he had literally drove from Minnesota to Washington, D.C. And they were making him come out. And so, there's so many stories around this moment, because I'm he was destined to meet me. He moved to Washington, D.C. to meet me. My friend's see, I set you up. I made you go talk to him. His friend was see, I made you come out. And other people are you snatched him up real quickly in Washington, D.C. So it's kind of funny, but we exchanged numbers. We went out on our first date. the next week to watch Shakespeare in the Park, which was super romantic and just really hit it off. And it was one of those moments where like I knew that this was the person for me. Like it just felt so right in so many ways and just felt like natural. It almost felt like, I'm someone who believes in reincarnation. So it almost felt like we met again, maybe we had met, maybe we'd been together in another lifetime. It was almost like coming back home, that was the kind of feeling that I had with him.
So you could just be yourself. Is that why you think you fell in love? Or so did you know immediately at Shakespeare in the Park that you were like in love with him, or you just kind of knew he's your soulmate already?
I mean, I don't know. It was very early on. I don't know that it was like in that first moment or the first week, but it just felt like very within a few months, like just very comfortable. Like we just jived. We are actually both Hindu, and so that to me meant a lot that we both were the same religion. He actually grew up abroad. He's from Nepal. And he grew up in Kathmandu. He actually lived in Europe too. His family traveled and moved around quite a bit, but he had lived in many different places. So I think like that connection of like, there was just like a lot of alignment. Like, and I just felt very peaceful around him. Like he just felt like had this really peaceful, calm presence. And I think like that was very notable to me, like being an emergency medicine physician,
Yes.
and a lot of chaos and a lot of stress. It was like this perfect like counterbalance, But I will say that my friends knew quickly. They're like, oh yeah, you guys are totally going to get married when they would see us together.
Okay. So once you had kids, right? Because that's when a lot of things shift, is because you're like saying, okay, the emergency medicine physician, you're used to a lot of chaos. He was kind of one of those peaceful, calm people. And then what about once you had kids? How did that affect your relationship? Did he maintain that peaceful calm? Was that still, how did it affect your relationship? And what did that look like?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of things did shift in my life personally when I became a mom, right? So I was working this crazy, chaotic schedule as an attending physician in the Chicago suburbs, a lot of like evenings, nights, weekends. I mean, just the whole experience of being a pregnant ER doctor in a place where there's a lot of violence happening. Like the ER, like there are some violent things that can happen in an ER in terms of like, drunk people or like, I mean, there were times where guns have been brought into the ER or like even randomly a machete. But not even that, like you're just sometimes taking care of a kid, like a toddler and trying to check their ears and they start punching you, or, kicking you because they're just having a tantrum, but so that in and of itself was such a stressful experience. And even, I mean, it wasn't COVID at the time, but there was like this other, what was it? It was H1N1 flu that was going around, and it was like really bad for pregnant women because pregnant women could die from it. And so it was such a like stressful time to be pregnant working in the ER. But my husband was always so supportive. Like he had always been my rock. We met in residency. Like there were times like, in residency where you come home from like the worst shift of your life or the worst day of your life. And you're like, I just want to quit, but my husband was always like, it's okay. I'm here for you. We'll get through this together. Like he was always like that. And he's always like, we'll get through this together. Like my problems were like, he was willing to carry like the burden of it himself as well. And I just remember like coming home to him, like sometimes just like falling in bed next to him because I'd come home at like 1 a.m. or something from a crazy shift and just like him hugging me as I was like crying, And so he was always so supportive. And, for both pregnancies, for both kids. But it was hard, juggling the two kids. We were both working full time, and he has a master's in business and was working in the corporate world for a long time. And so at some point we just like, we're like, it was just, we didn't feel like we could be the present parents that we wanted to be. And also I was experiencing some burnout, professional burnout, and I think also parental burnout, in terms of like, you go to your first shift working, for me, it was in the ER, and then you come home to a lot of home responsibilities. And even though my husband was super supportive and super helpful, it just was a lot, and I just felt like I wasn't having enough time for myself. And I just felt like I was out of shape. I wasn't getting enough rest. I wasn't getting to exercise. I wasn't eating correctly. And also, it just really affected my mood. And so, honestly, my husband has always been great. But what I started to realize is like I needed to change and I needed to work on myself and figure out how to get myself out of burnout. And, honestly, that's part of my story and part of why I became a coach.
So, okay. So let's talk about how many years after becoming an emergency medicine physician you decided to become a coach. And then was it then that you opened Mighty Mom and you founded Mighty Mom MD in Women in White Coats? And how did this affect your marriage, becoming a coach, becoming a founder of these two companies, and still emergency medicine physician? Like, it just seems like a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, as I was mentioning, like I had to figure out how to get myself out of burnout, like I knew I wasn't showing up as the best version of myself at work, at home, with my kids, with my husband. And, it's easy to go around like kind of like blaming other people, blaming the circumstance. But I think what I just realized was like, I need to improve myself. Like if I wanted a better marriage, if I wanted to be a better mom, if I wanted to be a better doctor, then I needed to become better. And so it's really an inside job is what I started to realize. And it really started with some very fundamental things like, what a lot of people call self-care, which, in my case, I like to call it like personal and mental hygiene because it seems so necessary. Sometimes self-care seems so luxurious and so like not necessary, or like, spa days and getting your nails done, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think everyone should get that, those things done for themselves. But for me, it was just like, okay, I need to start from the beginning, from my basic things and make sure I'm taking really great care of myself, having time for what I went on to call, and what I learned from a book actually called Miracle Morning, is just really taking time to set myself up first for a positive mindset, some alone time for meditation, getting a workout in. And so I really started to work on that, and that helped me get out of burnout. It also helped me have a physical transformation where I lost like 35 pounds. I started showing up better. People at work were like, Doc, you seem so happy. Like, what's going on? What are you doing? You seem energetic. I started showing up better as a mom. I started showing up better as a wife. And so as I was along that journey, people would ask me like, what did you do to lose the weight? Like, you look great. You seem energetic. Like your mood is awesome. Like, what are you doing? And so, I started to share with them what I was doing and ended up starting to coach them. And so, it did add something additional to my plate, but my husband, again, like he's such a supportive person. Like he wanted nothing more for me than to just be happy, right? Like, and for me to fulfill my purpose. And I think he also just recognized my passion for it, and that that I had talent for it too, like that I was a good coach, that I was a good speaker, and all those things. And so he just wanted me to live out like my purpose and my dreams, and not feel like confined to one thing. And so, he's been supportive of that. And so, at first my coaching really was along the lines of fitness, health, and weight loss. And it was really more about giving people action plans, workout programs to follow and nutrition plans to follow. But while I did help a lot of people lose weight, one of the things I was noticing was they weren't always making like mindset shifts that were enduring. And so that's what led me to seek out a way to get like a professional life coaching certification to kind of go upstream and not just change people's actions, but change their thoughts and their feelings, which changes their actions and the results. And in that way, when you change the thoughts and the feelings that come from there, the actions become so much more easy and can be longer lasting. And so that's
already a weight loss. You were already helping people before you became the coach.
Yes, I was already helping people before I became a certified coach. But then I went on to get the certification. And along the way, I just started feeling good, finding my voice, talking more about what I was doing. And a friend was going to be a part of this book called The Chronicles of Women in White Coats. And I said, that sounds amazing. That's something I'd love to be a part of. I've always been a writer. In fact, I actually have a master's in journalism. I've
Wow.
always loved writing. Yeah. So I was like, I want to get back to certain things I love. And so feeling good, having worked on myself, feeling good, feeling energetic, feeling like my dreams could become a reality, I was like, let me see if I can be a part of this book project. And so I was. And we published The Chronicles of Women in White Coats back in 2018. And then from there, we ended up, Dr. Amber Robbins, who was the mastermind of that book, who came up with the concept of the book. She and I partnered together. She also has a medical journalism background. We partnered up together to create a blog called the Women in White Coats blog, but which really grew into a community where we started doing courses, we started doing conferences, and now we do coaching as well there, primarily at this time around burnout. But we really aim to just uplift and empower women doctors. We've both been through the different struggles as women doctors. And in my case, I also saw my mom going through those struggles. She's a family medicine doctor. And I saw her struggling a lot in different areas of her life, in different parts of career, trying to juggle, being the mom, being a physician, and all her different, as well as a wife and all her different roles. So in many ways, it's like kind of was like generational. I was like, man, like I need to figure this out. So if my daughter or all the other young women out there who want to become physicians also want to do this, like, how can we help them? How can we help set them up for success?
Yeah. Did you see your mom, because I know you like to talk about bad habits, we learn in medical school that sabotage our weight loss and stress eating. Did you see your mom do this kind of stuff to herself? Or was that more you?
Yeah, that was probably more me. I don't think I would so much apply that to my mom. My mom had pretty good eating habits, but that was more me and my own personal experience because, as I mentioned, I was having this, I was in burnout. I wasn't finding the time to exercise or eat correctly. And I went on to like diet multiple times, but like would yo-yo with my weight. And so I started to really look at the issue and like what was really going on. And I started to realize, and now, especially after coaching many women physicians and helping them lose weight for the last time, what I have started to realize is there are like 4 bad habits that people learn. And just for the sake of time, I'll just share 2 of them today. But yeah, one of them is just really shutting down your own body signals, right? And I think that in med school, we learn to, just be on, like we have to be ready to go, right? Whenever we're called. And it doesn't matter if you're hungry. It doesn't matter if you're sleepy. Like you get woken up in the middle of the night, right? It doesn't matter what's going on. Like if your attending tells you that you need to be scrubbed in for a 10-hour vascular case, surgical case in the OR and you can't scrub out, then you start turning off your body's signals for hunger, your body's signals for water, your body's signals, to even go to the bathroom, right? And so I think we get really, really good at that, at just shutting ourselves off and not being able to read our body signals. And I think even our feelings, right? Like we start to shut down our feelings and how we actually feel. And so I think that that's a bad habit that so many of us learn in med school that doesn't help us lose weight. And in fact, it can sort of sabotage us because we're not learning like when we're actually hungry and when we're actually, have satiety or we're full. And so we're not able to really tap into our body signals because our bodies will tell us like when we actually do need to eat and when we don't. And then the second thing is that we tend to develop scarcity around food. We were all taught eat, drink, and pee while you can, right? Were you taught that, Kate?
Mm-hmm. I refused. I honestly, Archana, I refused to buy into the eat fast and eat while you can because I had body issues in high school. And I knew that if I felt I kind of like already had seen that coming. And I had, I was kind of grew up a little bit chubby and then lost weight and then lost too much weight. Anyway, so yeah, I went through that whole journey before I went to medical school and residency. So when I was in residency, I was like, I'm not eating fast. Like nobody's going to ever control. Like I was very, very in control of how I ate so I get what, I saw that. I saw a lot of people being affected by that. And that was kind of the one thing I wasn't going to let anybody take away from me.
Yeah, I love that awareness that you had. I think so many of us don't have that awareness, and we're like, oh my God, I just got to eat, drink, and pee while I can. Like, you never know, like when the whole row of ambulances are going to come in, or like there's going to be 10 admissions in the ER, or you're just, it's just like this whole thing of like, or just remember like, after morning rounds or like before morning rounds, just like stuffing my white coat pockets with like granola bars and yogurts or whatever I could carry in my pocket, so that I wouldn't be hungry, and it was just like, and even in the ER really reinforced that for me, because it was like, you never knew when that code blue would come in or that bad trauma. And like, you'd be with that patient for like 2 hours straight and you'd miss lunch. And so there's all this like scarcity around food. And so it's just like, I would just want to like gobble up all the food when I could, thinking like, I don't know when my next meal is going to come. And so I think like that can really create like all this scarcity. Whereas if you feel like there's plenty of food, there's plenty of time, like I will always have enough food to eat, like when I need to eat it, right? Like it's just such a different vibe. But so many of us develop that scarcity around food.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally get it. I was a food scavenger and hoarder. So I would get the food and I would save it. And then I would even have like a bowl of nuts, and like, I would just save that. And like, okay, I'd go back to that and go like eat a few nuts because like it's there. I know it's there, and I'll get to it when my body tells me I'm ready. Mm-hmm. But no, that is so true. So scarcity, let's try to eliminate the scarcity of food and then stop shutting down our body signals. Like just learn to listen to it, because when we stop, then we don't even know when we're hungry anymore, right? Like if we stop ignoring.
Yeah, exactly. We don't know when we're hungry. We don't know when we're full, right? Like we're just kind of like stuffing our faces. Like the two kind of go together. We like keep stuffing our faces because we're like, I don't know when the next meal's going to come. I don't know how crazy the day's going to be, and we're just losing the opportunity to really just tap into our bodies. And I think we almost have to relearn that, because so many of us have shut it down, and then you add to that a lot of mindless eating that tends to happen. That's one of the other bad habits that we learn, is just like, think about all the times, like I never used to really do this until I got into med school where I had to study so much, but there's so many times where it's just like, studying and eating, or like doing charts and eating, right? Or even the other thing is like grand rounds. Like we always had grand rounds during lunchtime, and we were supposed to like eat and watch grand rounds at the same time. There's so much like mindless eating. So again, it makes it harder to tap into your signals about, are you actually hungry or not?
Yeah. Are you just eating because everybody else is? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, because you have such a good relationship with your husband, and it's like, it sounded like from the beginning, you knew, you just worked, you were comfortable with each other. Cause I have a lot of clients who come to me and they're like, either their husband or them, they cannot, or their spouse they don't feel comfortable being themselves. They can't be their authentic, their true selves, because they feel like their spouse is going to get upset or angry at them. So they just never feel comfortable. Like even when they schedule date nights, right, to reconnect, they can't even reconnect because they're so worried about being judged the whole time. So I just want you to kind of, and you've never had that problem in your relationship, or have you, Archana?
No, I mean, it's interesting. Like I was just very upfront and honest with my husband. I mean, he was my boyfriend at the time. And this kind of is one of the stories I wanted to share, is that like, I just was really honest about who I was, and that I was very career oriented and focused. And I wanted to, he already knew I was a physician. And the thing is, like, my husband grew up in a family of doctors. Like literally everyone in his family is a doctor, like his dad, his mom, his brother, his sister-in-law.
Oh my gosh.
now his wife. So, I mean, I think he just got it. Okay. Like that I was going to have a career. And so one time we were in Hawaii, we went to a friend's wedding, and this is when we were still dating. And we stayed in like an Airbnb, and like we were there for like 10 days or something. So this place actually had like a washer and dryer. And so we were doing laundry, and like somehow I got the sense that like for a second there, like he was expecting me to fold like all of our laundry. And I was like, no, like, just so you know, like we both are going to be doing like housework together. And it's not just a woman's job to do this stuff. We're both like, I mean, we kind of knew where our relationship was heading, but like, I was like, if we get married, like we're both going to be sharing the housework. We're both going to be doing the childcare. We're both going to be working. Like we're both going to share this load equally. And I was just very upfront about that from the beginning, because I was like, if that's a deal breaker for him, I want him to know now, like I want to know now. Like, I don't want to like keep going with this relationship, because that's just like who I was. And that was my truth. And I was like, I'm not a Martha Stewart. Like I wasn't raised to be a housewife. And just like handle all these household duties. And by the way, I don't really cook that great, but I was just like super honest about like who I was, like, and he was like, okay, like that's fine. Like I accept that about you, and I'm okay with that, So I think it's like really important, like early on, to say those things, but like I think honestly, it's never too late to say those things.
Right. And so like the rules you're breaking here, right?
Yeah. So I think that, like there's a lot of societal archetypes, right? Which I like to call bullshit rules or brules.
Yeah. Tell us a few more of your brules.
They're the common line of thinking, right? Like the wife should stay home while the husband works. The wife should be doing all the household duties. The childcare, should fall on her shoulders. Other things too, like you have to work till you're 65. That that it's safe to be employed by others. We really just started to question a lot of those things with intention. And we realized together is that two of our biggest values as a couple really were about family and freedom. And so, we really were like, well, like our life doesn't have to look like whatever society says it should be. And we really started to question those things. And so, as I was mentioning, it was tough to be an emergency physician, have two little kids at home, both of us working full time. And so we kind of came to an agreement that like he would stay home with the kids. Like he was like, I want to be a more present dad. I want to show up for them. I want to help take care of them more, and he also was, I think, to be honest, like kind of like done with the corporate world and being like, I don't know, kind of feeling like so owned by them, like told what to do, where you got to be, what time you got to be there. And I too was getting frustrated with that. So when we really started to think about like our two big values were about family and freedom can be so many different things, right? Like financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom, purpose freedom, people freedom. Like we wanted to have all of those freedoms. And so we made the decision that he would stay home with the kids and I was going to keep working. And being the one who is kind of the main breadwinner. Now, there's many other things that he's done within our family to help support us. Like we have real estate investments. We have a lot of other investments that he manages. And even our real estate, he actively manages and does the property management around that. Okay. But, and so we decided that. But then also a few years later, in 2020, we decided I was going to leave my job. And the way we were able to do that was really to sit down and really look at our finances and be like, okay, well, what are our monthly expenses? What are our annual expenses? Like, what do we need to be bringing in so that we don't start to tap into savings? I really started to learn more about FIRE and financial independence and retiring early. And to me, that just sounded so attractive. And I just really wanted to have financial freedom. I wanted to work because I wanted to, not because I needed the paycheck, And so we really sat down and we're like, well, what do we need to do? And my husband, again, was supportive and he wanted to make sure I was enjoying my work. And, he knew that coaching was becoming a bigger part of my life and that it was growing. And part of the thing was like, working in the emergency medicine setting, I really didn't have a lot of control over my time and like my schedule. And so I was like, I really want to have full control over my schedule. I want to also COVID happened. Kids were homes, they were doing homeschooling or whatever, remote learning. And I was like, I really want to be present. There's some things going on for my daughter as well that I just really needed to be present for. And so but it took us sitting down to look at our finances and be like, can we make this work? And we decided we could. And so I ended up leaving the emergency department setting. And I was like, this is it. This is the last time I'm ever going to be employed. I want to be an independent contractor. I want to have full control over my time.
Wow. And this was during COVID?
Yeah, that was during COVID that I left. My husband had left the corporate world a few years before that.
Okay. And so, but like when you sat down, you guys just decided, okay, we're going to have financial date night, or we're after the kids go to sleep, or on Saturday. Like, what did that? You just decided, okay, we're going to do this and figure it out, or how did that lead? How did it lead up to that? So you guys,
So my husband's a spreadsheet person, right? And I started to become one too. But yeah, we literally sit down every quarter. And we look at our net worth, like, okay, what is our net worth? Where are we at? Like, how are investments going? Like, and he basically presents me the whole report.
Yes. You just come and then you figure out. So then you guys figured out how much you needed to survive on, and how much like your assets, your real estate was already bringing in, and then your company and your coaching, and then like what you needed to make. That kind of a thing?
Yeah, exactly. We kind of just reverse engineered it. Like, okay, we don't want to be tapping into, because we're in our 40s, we don't want to be tapping into our 401ks. We want to let that sit and grow and accumulate. We don't want to necessarily be selling off all our real estate. So we're like, we want to let that all kind of stay and keep it status quo. But like, what do we need to be bringing in? Like, what do I need to be bringing in from my work, whether that's telemedicine, whether that's coaching, whether that's, the businesses, whatever it is, to sustain like our just general expenses as a family of four. And so we just sort of reverse engineered that. We figured out how much that would be. And that kind of just gave me a clear cut goal. Okay, this is how much I need to be bringing in. And if there's more, awesome, then that's going to go in for like savings or fun things or whatever we want to do with it, or investing, So we just kind of had a plan, but we do sit down every quarter and review it and kind of see where we're at.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh. Well, we hit everything: medicine, marriage, and money. Do you have any last like take home points, any additional marriage tips or anything else? Any parting words of wisdom?
Yeah, I do. I love your podcast and I love the focus on marriage because I really do believe it's something that takes work, right? And so I recently heard one of my mentors say that many people get divorced because 20% of the marriage is not what they wanted. But if you actually think about that, that's like crazy, because what that means is 80% of the marriage is what they wanted, right? And so I really think that it's really a decision to focus in on that 80% that is going well, And now I'm not talking about extenuating circumstances where there's like violence or domestic violence or physical abuse. Like, of course, people need to leave those situations, but I'm talking about if it's like things that could be resolved and things that could be worked through, then I think like we really need to just decide to focus in on that 80%. And I think, as we know, as life coaches, like you can't change another person. You simply can't. Like, you can't change your own kids, right? So you can't really make them do anything, as much as we like to think we can, but we can't. And you certainly can't make another adult change or do something different or act different or speak differently, right? The only thing you really have control over is yourself. And so that always, whenever I was coming up with a problem or something that didn't seem to be going right, I always looked at myself. I was like, well, what can I do different? Where do I have control? How can I perhaps show up differently, have a different like approach to this, say different things, like what can I do to be better? And I think like ultimately that's what it is, like deciding to first be better yourself, and then you're going to have a better marriage. And I think just also making it like, if you decide that you want to be married and you want to stay married, like it's really a choice to make it work. And you just have to keep showing up to making it work and making it a non-negotiable that you will figure out a way to make it work. And for me, like I think about in my journal, I write down like all my dreams that I want to have come true. And one of them is has to do with my marriage. Like I want to grow old with my husband, and I want to just like become a grandma with I want us to become grandparents together, where our kids have their own kids. And like that to me is like one of my life goals. And so I just kind of keep that in mind, like whatever little things come up that maybe I don't like or find annoying or, not going the way I want. I'm like, just keep in mind sort of the long-term goal.
Yeah. I had never heard of that 20-80 rule, but yeah, the focusing on the long-term goal, knowing what you want, and then focusing on the 80% that's going right versus the 20% that's going wrong. That's brilliant. Somebody you said, who told you that? Some mentor told you that.
Yeah. One of the mentors I follow, Darren Hardy, he was talking about that in one of the books that he's written. And so I was like, wow, because the whole 80, I think we all know the 80-20 rule, right? Like the Pareto principle. And like, I think it just applies in so many areas of life. 80% of things are going well, even with my kids, like 80% of the time, like they're doing so great. Like they're acting so well. Their behavior is awesome. They're doing well in school, but it's so easy to focus in on that 20%, right?
No, I don't think everybody knows about this 80-20 rule. I think you're teaching it to us right now. You know about it.
Check it out. It's called the Pareto principle.
Okay, I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on my show, Archana.
This is wonderful.
Yes. And let's see, where can people find you?
Yeah. So if people would like to check out my free mini course specifically created for stressed out physician moms, it's called Secrets to Lasting Weight Loss We Didn't Learn in Med School. They can go to my website, which is mightymommd.com. And if you'd like to learn more about what we do at Women in White Coats, the community we're building there, the conferences, the coaching that we have there, you can simply go to womeninwhitecoats.com. Of course, we're on social media as well. On Instagram, you can find me at Mighty Mom MD, and you can find Women in White Coats at Women in White Coats blog.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Archana, for coming today and sharing all these marriage tips, weight loss tips, and just how to know you're with your soulmate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. It's been wonderful.
What a wonderful episode with Dr. Archana Shrestha. So my take-home points. Number 1, set yourself up for success. Start in the morning. Create a miracle morning for yourself. Take care of yourself first, and then everything else will fall into place. Number 2, do more things you love, whether it's writing, drawing, painting, exercising, maybe sleeping, maybe cooking gourmet foods, going out to nice restaurants, whatever it might be. Do more of those things. Fit those into your schedule first. Number 3, stop shutting down your body signals. Stop ignoring when you have to go pee, when you have to go poop, when you're hungry, when you're thirsty. The more you ignore these things, the less your body is going to actually recognize itself. And then you're going to just start eating because you're eating. You become victim to what society and what others want you to do instead of what your own body wants you to do. So stop shutting down your own body signals. Number 4, sit down and look at your numbers. If you're telling yourself stories like we spend too much money, or I have no idea, where the money is going, you do. Just sit down, figure out what numbers are coming in, right? And then look at what numbers are going out. Figure out how much you actually need to be making. Do you need to be working as hard as you're working? Maybe you don't. Maybe you can actually invest some time in resources in your own self and your family. Maybe you have more money to allocate to delegation. Maybe you have more money than you think, and you don't even know it. And maybe you have less, and you need to start noticing and actually looking at the numbers. And And I hope you guys walk away asking yourself, how can I focus more on the 80% that is going well rather than the 20% that is going poorly? I'm going to emphasize that. And I think that is key to this entire interview. So I hope you walk away and you ask yourself, how can I focus more on the 80% that is going well and less on the 20% that is going poorly? And with that, so much love, my friends, to you and your spouse. I hope you fly away with love, compassion, and joy, and spread it to all you touch, to all you see, to all you speak in this world. So much love, my friends. If you are finding the concepts I teach in these episodes useful and want more in-depth and personalized support for your relationship, consider this your invitation to join me in creating the most connected and intimate relationship with your spouse that you could dream of. Go to www.medicinemarriageandmoney.com right now and download my 18-page medical marriage survival guide and workbook at no cost to you. I also have a 6-day marriage challenge, which goes over the 6 predictors of divorce at no cost to you. These have been known to decrease fighting, rumination, and grudges between you and your loved one. If you want to take it a step farther, really enhance the joy and connection in the most intimate relationship in your life, sign up for my 8-week Making Marriage Work program today at medicinemarriageandmoney.com. Thanks for leaving us a stellar review, subscribing, and sharing with your friends on social media. You have the power to improve someone else's life and marriage simply by sharing this episode. Much love to you and your spouse. You're exactly where you need to be in this moment. Adios, my friends. The content of this episode is not intended to be a substitute for professional, medical, or financial advice. The opinions provided on this episode are those of myself or the invited guest alone. They do not represent the opinions of any particular institution. Always seek the advice of your physician or financial advisor with any questions you may have of a medical condition or financial plan. This is for your entertainment only.